Ministers are considering renationalising British Steel if the rescue plan fails. We're going to read into this exclusive from The Guardian, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from The Guardian with the headline that ministers are considering renationalising British Steel if the rescue plans fail. The exclusive reveals that the move would be a last-ditch attempt to save thousands of UK jobs amid a standoff with the company's Chinese owners. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. The prospects of renationalising seems, in my eyes, seems like a good thing. I think, yeah, especially an industry that is vital and a very important component of the UK economy. Okay, some people may argue it's not as important as some other industries, but I do think British Steel really does matter. We're talking about something that we produce here in the UK, okay, and we don't want to import everything. We would like to create and export things too, and the British steel industry has come a long way. And since its privatisation by Margaret Thatcher back in 1988, it's not been doing well for itself, understandably, and the Conservatives have kind of let it falter. And for quite a long period now, one of the things that the government has been consistently doing to keep some of these industries going is literally just throw money at them. If they've just been throwing cash at these private companies that own the British steel industries in order to keep them afloat, because they won't put so much money in it themselves, and they would encourage the government to put money in, and the government keeps putting their hands in their pockets, so we, the taxpayer, are throwing money at private companies in order to keep running the British steel industry on our behalf. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of sick and tired of taxpayer money being thrown at an industry that, if we care so much about it, why don't we just put it in the government's hands, so that way we're not throwing money at it, we are literally running it, and any profit that it makes goes back into the treasury. Am I the only one that can see this? Like, and not only that, we're guaranteeing these people's jobs security as well. British steel matters. I think it's very, very important. But I'm kind of, to me, it's not a case of these private companies. This is no different than water and electricity. You know, putting it in the hands of the state so that the state controls it. You would not trust someone else to. You don't like the fact that your water is not owned by you. Do you not? You don't like the fact that perhaps potentially that water could potentially cost more money, or perhaps someone else can turn the tap off whenever they want to, because guess what? You don't own the water that comes out of your tap. You pay for the water, but you don't own the water. So, but if it's nationalised, obviously, it's something that we control, because guess what? It comes straight from the government, and we're supposed to have faith in our governments, which we are struggling with right now. Now, in terms of British Steel, if I'm absolutely honest, I would be all in favour of renationalising. I can understand some of the criticisms of why people do not want it, because some people will come across along the lines of, well, we shouldn't be paying out taxpayer money for British Steel. Some people will say we don't have any money, which is nonsense, because we do have money. We always have money for things. So to say that the government wouldn't be able to deal with this, I disagree. I think they would be able to take control of it. And personally, I would like it to stay in the state's hands, if I'm personally honest. I generally believe in nationalising more than leaving things in the hands of private businesses, because at the end of the day, what matters to them is profit, money-driven profit. That's one thing they're always driven by. And we're talking about an industry that is very valuable to us as well. So there is a part of me that feels like it's wrong to renationalise it, but that we should leave it in the hands of private companies. But at the same time, we're talking about jobs here. We're already seeing other sectors being under risk as well. Especially with what's happening with the EV car factory in Luton, for example. So, yeah, this is one that I would be in favour of renationalising if it had no other choice. So ministers are considering renationalising British Steel in a large-ditch attempt to save thousands of jobs amid a standoff between the government and the company's Chinese owners over a £1 billion investment. So Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, is locked in talks with British Steel and its owner, Jingye, to agree how each party should put into a rescue plan made for its main Scunthorpe site. But with discussions showing little sign of progress, sources say Reynolds is open to taking it over entirely, in a move that would reverse Margaret Thatcher's privatisation of the British steel industry in 1988. One Whitehall official has said, "It's one of the several options being looked at. We have looked at it. Would have been neglected not to look at it. But it is the least attractive option. We'll be talking about substantial sums of money to buy, but not very much." A spokesperson for the business secretary declined to rule out nationalising the company, but the government said they had no plans to do so. They added that we're working across government in partnership with trade unions and businesses to secure a green steel transition that's right for the workforce, represent a good investment for taxpayers and safeguards for the future of the steel industry in Britain. A British Steel spokesperson has said, "We are in ongoing discussions with the government about our decarbonisation plans and the future operations of our UK business. While progress continues, no final decision has been made." British Steel's plant at Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire employs about 4,000 people and is the only place left in the UK that still makes steel from iron ore, after the Indian company Tata closed its blast furnaces at Port Talbot in South Wales. It makes steel for everything from railways to heavy machinery to warships, putting it at the centre of government's infrastructure and national security plans. This is why it's so fundamentally important. As Keir Starmer said before the elections, for far too long our steel industry has been left behind while our European allies forge ahead. We must turn this around. We must make Britain a world leader again. Since entering government, much of Labour's plans for how to save British steel making have focused on protecting jobs and manufacturing capacity at British Steel. The original British Steel was formed in 1967 when Harold Wilson's Labour government nationalised more than a dozen private companies to create one of the biggest steel producers in the world. It was privatised by Thatcher and broken up. In its latest incarnation, has recently struggled with high cost and increased competition from abroad. The company was nationalised in 2020 for 10 months while a new buyer was found, and during that time it cost the taxpayers £600 million. And Jingye, the Chinese steelmaker, eventually bought the company, but has been in talks with ministers for over a year over a rescue plan under which its polluting blast furnaces would be converted into electric ones. An initial plan would have involved the company building one electric arc furnace at Scunthorpe and another at its site in Teesside. However, several people close to the talks say the option of a furnace at Teesside has now been ruled out, in what would be a major blow to Ben Hodgson, the Conservative mayor of Tees Valley. The cancellation will dent hopes of reviving industry in the area, which was traumatised by the closure of Redcast Steelworks in 2015 and the loss of 3,000 jobs. That's a double whammy. So not only did they not get into the electric arc furnace, but they also had that back in 2015. Instead, their talks are now focused on building at least one remaining electric furnace at Scunthorpe, replacing the site's two blast furnaces, which were responsible for about 0.8% of all UK carbon emissions in 2023. It would help the UK meet its target to reach net zero by 2050. Building an electric arc furnace at Scunthorpe is likely to cost around £1 billion, according to those close to the talks, of which the company has been expected to contribute about half, as Tata did at Port Talbot. However, officials have become increasingly concerned that during those negotiations that Jingye is not willing to stump up the investment needed, leaving the government potentially hooked for the full amount. So this is the problem here, right? Because you put it in private companies' hands, you expect them to cough up the money for them. And they can turn around and say, I'm not going to put that much money up. You guys need to put up more money. So they basically want a bit more money. They want the government to pay, taxpayer to pay a bit more on their behalf, basically. And this is a problem here. That we're being told that, no, you should pay a bit more. We'll chip in, but you need to pay more. If Reynolds is unable to agree a deal with the Chinese company, it leaves the government with two main options. Allow the company to fall into administration in the hopes of finding another buyer, or take over part or all of its operations directly. Sources say options include a whole or partial nationalisation, which could be a temporary stopgap measure or a more long-term solution. Nationalisation would present several complications, however, especially if the government is planning to keep blast furnaces running while building electric arc furnaces. Well, yes, I would say you would have to keep it running while building the electric arc furnaces. I would agree with that. If Jingye were to walk away and the furnaces left to cool down in an uncontrolled manner, it could become unsuitable. A controlled shutdown could cost tens of millions of pounds. Unions are due to meet the company on Friday to discuss a multi-union plan. How best to protect jobs and steelmaker capacity. Negotiations are racing to agree a deal before the end of January, by which point the company will have run out of raw materials it needs to make steel and will need to order more. Some unions indicate that they would be more supportive of a plan that included nationalisation. Sharon Graham, the General Secretary in Knight, said the UK government, being an investor of first resource, is an important first step. Previous governments have sold the family silver, and now most of our critical infrastructure is owned by other countries or companies outside the UK. Charlotte Brompton Charles, a national officer at the GMB union, said, rather than forking out billions of taxpayer cash to reward private sector failure, the money should be used to renationalise our once proud steel sector. The point there is that's the key point that really sticks out to me about all this, guys, is that we're forking out billions of taxpayer towards private sector failure because they failed to look after it. This is the same thing with the water companies. This is the exact same thing with the water companies. When you think about it, the damage that the sewage, the environment, and damage, and the infrastructure that's not been built in the water industry, right, by private companies, and they say, oh, we need people to pay more for their bills in order for this cost to be dealt with. That's what they're saying, which is ridiculous, isn't it? That you're being told you should pay more for your water bill so that they can fix infrastructure. And do you actually think they're going to do that? No, of course they're not. They're just saying that to make you believe that they're actually going to do it. So, because at the end of the day, profit is all that matters to them. Making money for themselves is all that matters to them. They couldn't give a damn about you. And this is the same with British Steel. You know, it's a very important component of the British economy, and we rely on British Steel. We need British Steel. Otherwise, everything is going to all cost more to get that steel into the UK. So it's better to have it here than actually importing it ourselves. So I think they should seriously consider nationalising it. Obviously, there is a cost to that, but I would rather it be nationalised than consistently having to fork out money towards private companies to look after it for us, only to bugger it up and then ask the government for more money in order to keep buggering it up so they can keep asking us for more money, and again and again and again, because their main priority is obviously profit at the expense of us, the taxpayer. Whereas British Steel would be prioritising British Steel if owned by the state, as opposed to being driven by profit. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of the prospects of British Steel being renationalised? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you have shared concerns about it like I do? Let me know your thoughts and more on this story down in the comments section below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.